Give it a patch. Give it a patch.
You're on the patch.
Prairie and 168.
Prairie and 168 units to respond in 3 or less.
31 southbound on Prairie towards Redondo Beach Boulevard.
Units
One down.
confirm you need 902R for a suspect only.
Stand by, ma'am. Stand by.
Hello everybody, my name is Bob Lindsay and I'm a candidate for Sheriff of Los Angeles County. Today with me I have Mike C., a 13-year veteran of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He's worked Men's Central Jail, Compton Station, and then of course the very renowned unit of Operation Safe Streets, which is a gang unit on the Sheriff's Department. You know, in my travels, I've been speaking to a lot of people out there, a lot of the community members about what's going on inside the department. It's not just what you see outside that matters, but it's how young men like Mike are treated on the inside. You know, he's risked his life day in, day out for 13 years. He's been involved in how many shootings, Mike? 4?
4 shootings.
All of them founded good investigations, good shootings, where his life or the community's life was in danger. And in a minute, you're going to hear his story. But here's what I wanted to tell all of you out there listening. When I travel around and I say that the inside of the department is in crisis, this is just but one human story. There's many to follow. But when you get into Mike's story, which I heard just a couple of days ago, I immediately said, please, Mike, can you do this? Can you do this here on video? And you know what? I'm going to tell you something out there, all of you. He's going to be retaliated against. They're going to come after him for telling the truth, for telling his story to you. Mike, why don't we start with, you had an incident, you were working a second job. You have a family, right?
Yes, sir. I have 3 kids, unfortunately going through a divorce.
And you have a part-time job?
I actually own a furniture business, and I just became a realtor, but I also was open to any side cash jobs I can get with my dad or friends.
Yeah, so, you know, going through a divorce, having the kids, working so many hours. I know you're being ordered to work.
Yes, sir.
Because of the overtime. Did working on the department play any role at all in your getting a divorce?
I don't believe so, in my opinion. I was pretty good at, on my own, separating the two. There are stressors with the job that would put pressure on the family, but I like to say I can keep those two separate.
Yeah, I'd like to say that too, but after 40 years, you always bring it home.
It's true.
And I'm going to tell you, and Mike's being nice, but I'll tell you from 40 years of experience, I can't tell you how many times my wife told me, why didn't you call me? You know, why didn't you just tell me you were going to be 6 hours late? What were you doing? You know, where were you? Not only because she was concerned about me, but because she was concerned about me missing family time and all of those things. But Mike's story, aside from that portion of it, let's get back to the department, back to the agency. You had an incident somewhere out, I believe it was in Ventura County?
Yes, sir, Ventura.
Why don't you go ahead and describe what occurred?
It was a small off-duty incident that I was doing a favor for a friend. I ended up having an encounter with Ventura sheriffs, and the encounter was strictly verbal. There was no law enforcement taken. I wasn't being detained. I wasn't under the influence of alcohol. It wasn't domestic violence. It was just a peer-on-peer conversation, and that incident was reported to my lieutenant for Operation Safe Streets.
Okay, and once an incident is reported to any type of command staff or to the department and the sheriff's department, an investigation ensues. So did they investigate this incident?
Well, what happened before any investigation, or was I received a phone call from that particular lieutenant who felt it was necessary to open up the conversation with saying that he wants to help me out. And then he told me the encounter I had with Ventura Sheriff's was recorded, and that my story that I initially told him didn't match. And he said, basically, he says, I have this case on my desk. I'll do you a favor. If you just leave Operation Safe Streets, I'll make this go away like it never happened. But if you stay, I'm going to open up, I'm going to send this to Internal Affairs, and you're probably going to get relieved of duty and fired.
So it seems to me like it's a bartering system now. So if they want you gone, in this particular instance, a complaint just goes away?
He made it sound like he can just make it disappear just at his own accord.
Well, obviously, you're dedicated to Operation Safe Streets. How long have you been there?
I've been, to date, I've been assigned to Operation Safe Streets for 7 years.
That's a long time.
Yes, sir. At the time, it was 5 years, and I did explain to the lieutenant, I said, sir, I've never been in any trouble, especially off duty. I've done nothing but good work. I've been accommodated. I've been given awards and medals, and I've never had any off-duty incidences prior to this.
So I take it you refuse to leave?
Yeah, I told him no. I said, there's no reason for me to leave. I have a good reputation here. I was still willing and ready to work hard.
Well, and that's what should have happened anyway. It should have taken the natural course of an investigation. I mean, that's what should happen. So then did they conduct any sort of investigation?
As far as that lieutenant and that captain, I'm not sure how involved they were with the investigation, but immediately my next working days, I was pulled out of the field and benched in Lenox Station, which is near Inglewood, at the old Lenox Station, which is OSS headquarters. And they took my take-home car away. They said I wasn't allowed to work overtime anymore, and they put me on a 5/8 schedule rather than my 4/10. And I was spending 4 to 6 hours a day alone, sitting in traffic.
And what did they have you doing? You were at the old Lenox Station.
Well, they had me doing data entry, which is not what I signed up to do. They also had me clean the armory out, which entailed cleaning 150 guns. You know, take them apart, oil them, put them back together. Menial tasks, you know, things like that.
So how did you feel? I mean, when I know you just want the investigation, go on with the investigation, do what you're going to do. They moved you out, and did they tell you why they had to remove you from your regular duty?
The captain told me I was a disciplinary risk, and he didn't want me out in the public, which was interesting to me because I've never been in any trouble, especially just out doing normal patrol type duties. I think the thing that really bothered me was I'd never met this particular captain at the time, and I never worked for the lieutenant that threatened me. So my first week at headquarters, I felt like I needed to go up and just meet the captain, and I wanted to shake his hand and just introduce him so he knew who he was dealing with. And you know, as far as being a good employee, I wanted him to be familiar with me. So he's my captain, and I've always been able to walk into any captain's office and just have a conversation. I have a great reputation with every captain I've ever worked for. And so I went and requested to see this captain, and the operations lieutenant at the time went and asked. The captain said he was too busy, so the operations lieutenant told me to send him an email requesting to meet him and CC the lieutenant to it. So I did. Well, 20 minutes later, apparently the captain did not appreciate my request via email, so that lieutenant came down, said the captain wanted to see me. I could tell the lieutenant was frustrated for whatever reason. So I go into the office, the lieutenant sits down in the corner behind me, the one that told me to CC him on the email, and I reach over the desk to introduce myself to the captain. I say, sir, you know, Deputy so-and-so, it's nice to meet you. And I leave my hand over the desk, uncomfortably long, thinking he was going to shake my hand. And so several, maybe 10 seconds goes by, and I say, sir, Deputy so-and-so, nice to meet you. And he looks up, he says, sit your ass down and be quiet. And the first words, so I sat down, kind of caught off guard because I've never been talked to this way by any captain, let alone sergeant or lieutenant. So I sat down, and he proceeded to lecture me for about 5 minutes. So I'm sitting there being lectured, and every time I try to interject or talk to him, he just cuts me off. And at the end of this, and the lieutenant who told me to CC him on the email just sits there like he never did anything, because he was lecturing me about sending him the email saying I was impatient.
So he was lecturing you about the email as opposed to the incident?
Yes, he was lecturing me about the email because he said I was being impatient, and I wanted to let him know the lieutenant asked me to send him the email, but nobody would let me get a word in edgewise. And so at the end of the conversation, he tells me, go downstairs, shut your mouth, and if I want to talk to you, I'll come talk to you myself. And so I said, yes, sir. And I stood up and I went to shake his hand one more time, and he wouldn't shake my hand. So, I felt it was rude for him to not shake my hand, so I left my hand there. And he finally reached up and shook my hand, and I walked out of the office.
So for those of you in the public, and I understand that a lot of times we get citizens' complaints. We get people who are upset with the way that they're approached out on the streets. And rightfully so, if somebody approaches you that way. Well, guess what? Here's a deputy sheriff working every day trying to keep you safe. And this is what he's putting up with inside. So, Mike, what's the status? What's going on? Because I know that somebody interviewed you,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir.
Regarding this incident. And during the interview, you were honest, open, you gave them information, but I think it was information that they didn't appreciate.
It was information they absolutely did not want to hear. I answered all their questions to the best of my ability, and I'm usually pretty candid, and I have nothing to hide. And during this internal affairs interview, I started to lay out some of the things that I went through with these supervisors while I was benched for whatever reason they made up or decided to hang their hat on. And the IA investigator tried to get me to stop talking several different times. And I just said, look, you're IA, who else am I supposed to talk to about this?
Right.
And, they just did not want to hear what I had to say. And I made it very clear that there were some things done wrong in this entire process. And I brought it to their attention, and I made the formal complaint. I mean, it was a very hostile work environment. A lot happened between my IA and the day they put me on the bench. I was just giving you some small examples of how it started. And,
Well, tell me. You gave me small examples. Give me some more. More examples of what occurred to you.
Okay, well, that particular lieutenant that gave me the ultimatum to either leave OSS or catch a case and possibly be fired, I had a civilian witness who's a secretary at OSS come down to me, and she says, hey, Mike, guess what I heard? I'm like, what'd you hear? Well, I overheard Lieutenant so-and-so and Lieutenant so-and-so talking, and at the time we had a new operations lieutenant, so the new operations lieutenant was asking the lieutenant who gave me the ultimatum, asking him what was my situation. That particular lieutenant answered by saying, excuse my language, but he says, fuck Deputy Coburg, he's not getting shit from us. And this is in front of civilian staff who, they don't know anything. I mean, he's just slandering me for whatever reason. And again, I've never worked for that lieutenant, so where he got his opinion, I don't know. So she came and told me the incident, and I thought it was interesting. And so when I later saw that new operations lieutenant, I confronted him about it. I asked him, I said, I heard you talk to the lieutenant about me. And he said, fuck Deputy Coburg and, whatever. And the lieutenant got real wide-eyed. He couldn't believe I actually confronted him about it. And he said, Deputy Coburg, you can catch a case talking that way. And I looked at him and said, yeah, I know. And, and that's why I'm telling you. And so he turned around and walked off, didn't say anything. And believe it or not, the next day I get approached by the same secretary, unsolicited, And she says, "You'll never guess what I heard." "What'd you hear?" "The new operations lieutenant confronted the captain and told the captain, 'Hey, Deputy Mike knows what the other lieutenant said about him.'" And, I never heard anything from them since that point. And on our department, those things aren't allowed to be, first of all, talked about in that way. And especially in front of civilian staff, and especially from your executives. And nothing was ever done about it. And I made the proper notification to my supervisor.
So you made the notification to the supervisor, and in your interview at Internal Affairs, whoever did it, wherever it was, what exactly did you tell them?
I told them exactly that. I mean, in more or less words. Can't say exactly. I mean, there's transcripts and a recording of it, so it's documented.
Sure.
But I let IA know, Internal Affairs, the investigator. He tried to stop me. He said, "This is not related to the incident. We don't want this talked about." And I said, "This is directly related to the incident. I'm already receiving discipline from my executives on something that you're investigating. You don't even know if you're going to discipline me at this point."
So Mike, at this point, had you been transferred?
I was still part of OSS, but no, I was not transferred. I was still in the headquarters at that point.
Okay. So you went, at what point, and somebody told me, I got a phone call when they told me about your case. They said that you were actually out cleaning porta potties.
Yeah. So eventually I was sent back into the field. I have my opinions why they put me in the field, but I was put in the field and told to do nothing. They told me to patrol the 7-Elevens, which means go drink coffee your entire shift, which is ridiculous. I mean, there's no deputy that should be spending their shift just drinking coffee all day because they're afraid to catch a case or supervisors writing them up. But anyways, so some time went by, and in between this time, I was involved in a bad motorcycle accident, spent some time off of work, recovered, came back to work, hoping to get back on my feet and just go hit the streets again and try to serve our communities. When one day I was coming into work, and my captain at OSS calls me, and he simply says, "Hey, you know what? He got a phone call from the sheriff, McDonald, and I need you to come turn your car in, and he said he was going to reassign me to Emergency Operations Bureau." And he tried to sugarcoat it and say, "Well, they're over there, they'll teach you how to drive an 18-wheeler, you get extra pay for that, there's plenty of overtime for you," and all this stuff, And but I asked why, and he says, "Well, Sheriff McDonald said you've been involved in too many shootings, and you're no longer allowed to have public contact." So my first or second week at EOB, I was literally washing, hand scrubbing mobile porta potties.
Wow. So here you are, a 13-year veteran.
Sir.
Worked Compton Station, worked the jails, worked OSS, which, by the way, is one of the most elite units on the department. I tried to get there for years and couldn't make it. And here you are, scrubbing porta potties.
I was scrubbing porta potties. I was cleaning trucks. I was dealing with equipment, and I was tasked with trying to receive equipment from people who left this particular unit. I was cleaning Conex boxes, which is just a big box, metal box, where they kept a bunch of gear. I mean, it was thrashed. It was a mess, and they told me to go down there and inventory and clean it.
So let's get this straight. You were told that McDonald had called the captain, and you're being transferred because you had 4 good shootings.
Yes, sir. I even got a medal Valor Silver for for one of those shootings.
So I understand that right now, and I'll give you an example. He has 4 good shootings, so he's cleaning porta potties. How do you feel about other deputies that are out there right now? How do they feel? Are they afraid to get in a shooting?
They're afraid to get in a verbal argument, let alone a shooting. These deputies seeing me, I had a reputation of being a very hard worker, and I was good at what I do. Me and my partners were good at what we did. And these deputies see guys like me or other hardworking deputies and see them getting multiple days off, no pay, gun and badge taken away, fired for who knows what, or relieved of duty for who knows what. And, a lot of these guys are winning their stuff back, and there's just the county doesn't seem to care. We have families, we have mortgages, and those things are falling apart. Everybody's running scared of the sheriff's department, and the people that are going to suffer the most are the communities we serve. We worked very hard to bring the crime rates down in a lot of these areas, especially some of the inner city stuff. And there's a lot of politics behind that. And all that effort's going to be turned around because these deputies are not going out there contacting the right people. Because they're not contacting people at all.
Well, I've heard point blank, just for all of you out there so you know this, when you've got an SEB entry team, a SWAT entry team, getting ready to go into a house, and they look at each other and say, how many uses of force have you had? And how about you? Have you been in a shooting? So wait a minute, anybody to the front of the line, if you haven't had a shooting or a use of force, because we've had 2, you've had 1, it becomes a math game. Because they're all afraid.
It actually gets worse than that. I actually work next to a lot of these Special Enforcement Bureau guys. I work with them every day where I happen to be assigned. I work with them. And they're not only counting who has what shootings, a lot of these guys have already been pulled out of the field with no public contact. These are our elite of elite tacticians.
Absolutely.
So they're actually sending in guys less qualified or less trained or not quite as much experience to do some of the craziest things that law enforcement will ever have to do, put their lives on the line. And aside from that, they're not only putting it on deputy sheriffs, male and female, they're putting it on dogs. The canine guys are like, how many bites does your dog have? Oh, well, we can't send in a dog now. I mean,
wow.
Send in your dog, I mean, it's that bad.
You know what? You're hearing it straight from Mike. This isn't me. This isn't me saying it. I hear it every day. I hear it from deputies all over the department. And you're looking at a guy right now, and I said it earlier, when this video is released, if anything's aired on the radio, he's a target. He was already a target, apparently, because he had 4 good shootings. You know what? When you go out there as a deputy sheriff, you go out there to serve the community. And what this sheriff is doing is he's putting deputies into the position, into an unsafe mindset, wherein they're going to be afraid to shoot when somebody's looking right down at them through the barrel of a gun. Because they're going to say, wait a minute, if I get in this shooting, even if it's a good shooting, I'm going to be benched. My career's over. My promotability is gone. I'm not going to go anywhere, and I'm going to be cleaning porta potties. I'm going to tell you what, Mike's story is Mike's story, and everybody has a unique story, but everybody has similar stories, and that's the issue. And Mike said it best, you know what, we can't do police work this way. And when you start targeting deputies, it hurts the community. In fact, it severs that relationship. When you get deputies who are afraid to talk to the public, when you get deputies who are afraid to serve the public, not because they're not talented. This is a talented deputy sheriff. This is a guy who went through one of the toughest jails in the country, into one of the toughest stations in the country, and then worked an elite team for 7 years.
Yes, sir.
And this is what he gets paid back. So I'm going to tell you right now, all of that needs to change. It needs to go back to where deputies are represented appropriately in the circumstances throughout the department wherein they're achievers, wherein they go out to protect the community. And you know what? Mike's going to be the first one to tell you, we don't like bad cops.
No, I'll arrest a bad cop myself.
Bad cops need to go. They need to go. But how do you call this guy a bad cop because he defends himself and he defends the community and he gets in 4 shootings, all of which are good shootings, and he gets a Medal of Valor for one of them? How is that? How does that equate to being benched? How does that equate to your career being over? How does that equate to you never being promoted? How in the heck would anybody want to even be out in an area where you could possibly be in a shooting? It makes absolutely no sense. And I'll tell you what, there was a recent shooting. We all know that. It was out in the Westmont area. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't prejudge any shooting. I don't prejudge any people. But I will tell you this, that if they're going to be treated like Mike, I guarantee you this, nobody's going to want to work any of those areas at all, ever. And for the inner city community, when you get deputy sheriffs that don't want to come help you, that don't want to help in any manner, to have any contact, to do anything, then you, the good citizens out there, you, the people who care, you, those of you who want crime down, who want the criminals to be put away, to be put arrested, aren't going to have any say. You're not going to have any choice. So Mike, what's left? Where are you now?
I'm still at the Emergency Operations Bureau. I'm part of the SRT team, which is the Sheriff's Response Team. And I'm still technically doing their logistics, cleaning Connex box, which I ended up sustaining a neck injury from that I've been dealing with. And doctor said the only way to fix it is surgery. Not doing what I love, not doing what my passion is. I'm actually embarrassed to tell people what I do for a living now. And so I went out, got my realtor's license, I own my furniture business. I'm preoccupied doing those things, and honestly, that's my fallback plan, because I intend to, I'm almost thinking that I'll be targeted after, speaking out, and I need a backup plan.
Well, all of you deputy sheriffs out there, you need to tell Mike thank you. Because I know so many of you want to do the same thing, but it's really hard. You got families. And I know it's very difficult for you to stand up when you know that the retribution is that you'll no longer be able to support your family. We've seen too much of that over the course of the last 3 years. Deputy sheriffs are human. Mike is human. He has a heart. And all he wants is fairness, justice, just like everybody out in the community wants. And when you're treated like that, it sort of brings it home. And the reason I'm saying that is when the community comes to me and says I've been treated badly, or things aren't going right, or somebody has come up to me and said nasty things, you deserve that investigation. You deserve for us to find out what the truth is about that. But the same should hold true on the inside. Let me tell you what I did. I sent to the same Sheriff McDonald that removed him from service and put him on porta potty duty memos outlining multiple crimes. And you know what he did with it? He refused to investigate them criminally. I've got 32 years on the department, 7 years in the courts overseeing the sheriff's budget for the court. I know what a crime is. I was a watch commander. I was a deputy. I was a sergeant. I've written so many reports, I can't remember how many. But I can tell you this, I know what a crime is. And when my experience gives to the sheriff of Los Angeles County multiple crimes that he's unwilling to investigate because it would give him bad press, that's the state of the station, of the department, of OSS, of Compton, of San Dimas, of Temple City, of Santa Clarita. We can go through all the stations if you want to. But you know what? It's no different. Whether he was at OSS or whether he's at another unit, they're all being treated the same, unfairly. Now we're going to have several more segments. I'm sure there's more Mike has to talk about. And I know there's more deputies out there that have plenty of stories. In fact, I heard a half dozen today alone when I was at Professional Peace Officers Association. So stay tuned to what we have to say over the course of the next 2 to 3 months. Don't ever believe what you're being told when they say everything's nice, everything's pretty, everything's fine, the department is happy. It's not happy. This is the lowest morale in the sheriff's department since I can remember in 40 years. If you don't think that has something to do with crime being up, then you're mistaken. We can't blame propositions, legislation for everything. Sometimes we need to blame leadership. But you know what? If leadership points everywhere else every day, it's a diversion. Look at that legislation. Look over here. Look up there. Look over there. Take credit for what you do. Sheriff McDonald, you need to take credit for what you've done to a lot of these families, to a lot of the people. You don't even know them. I know you think this is just a business, but it's also a family. And it needs to be a family that's part of the community family. All of it needs to merge, all of it needs to meld so that they can remain safe and the community can remain safe. You want an apology to this guy, right here, to Mike. You owe him an apology. Give him a call. Because you know what? He should be out fighting crime. He should be out doing what he does best. And by the way, when people investigate cases, it shouldn't just target him. He has the right to tell the truth and to be honest about what's happening to him. And if it falls out that somebody else needs to be investigated, then do it. Just do it. Isn't that what you say you are? Transparent? Just do the investigations. And where they fall, they fall. And I'll say lastly, Mike, and we said it already, bad cops need to go.
Absolutely.
But I'm not looking at a bad cop. I'm looking at a hero. I know. You're a hero. I'm going to tell you what. I was shot at twice. I never got to return fire. Thank God I didn't have to. And we got both suspects. My son has been shot at once, rolling around in the gutter. And today, we're still alive. And I praise God for that. You've been in 4 shootings. I praise God that you're alive. And you need to be appreciated. And I hope down the road, you are appreciated. You're not going to be appreciated by that guy.
No.
But I know how much your peers and the people who have watched your career appreciate you. I appreciate everything you've done. And I can tell you this, when I'm the sheriff of Los Angeles County, you're not cleaning porta potties.
Well, we appreciate you, trust me.
Thank you.
A lot of guys are rooting for you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
My name is Bob Lindsay. Let's take the politics and the politicians out of law enforcement.